All right, to configure application performance monitoring, first of all, it's good to double check on a probe that you run the configuration here where you specify the collector address, and potentially you don't need to change the ports unless you really want to. Here you can select whether you want the communication to be encrypted or not. Then there is a portion, or rest of the configuration is actually done in the application performance monitoring itself. So when you go to APM, first of all, the settings of probes. So here you configure all your probes which are listening. So you configure IP address and port and which network card sees the traffic, as well as if there is a tab or something, you can use that. Of course, if you have just local probe, you don't need to configure the probe itself because it will automatically configure or connect to it locally. As an option for APM, there is an option to select which interface type it is. Usually the auto-detect works fine. Sometimes if you have some troubles, you might try to use the RONET cap or the PCAP, but the auto-detection should work just fine for you. The second step for the configuration of the application performance monitoring is specify which servers you are going to monitor. So generally by server or servers, you can specify a range of the addresses or IP address and port, and then the protocol which should be monitored, as well as which probe sees the traffic. In advanced configuration, you can specify as well VLANs and MPLS, but that's not necessary. So this way you configure all the servers which support your application and then move on to application configuration. Here it is two ways. Usually, if you will have some web shop or something like that, you might want to configure a database first, where you say, okay, how to identify the application. So either by server name, by something in the database, by some custom parameter as well. So you can use that for some extractors. So let's leave it as on a server IP, and then you can go is equal to, belongs to, and so on. So you can have multiple filters. They are all joined by AND. So all of this is then together. Then how to identify a session. So generally we can use a client IP address or some session ID in the database or some custom field again. Again, there could be multiple filters. They are all used as a OR. And then how to identify the transaction. So that can be, again, something specific, or you can leave it automatically. For that web application, then, let's cancel it actually, just to change it here. For that web application, again, you define the server, how to define a client. Then for the HTTP application, you can use parameters, response codes, forward codes, things like that, which will give you the details. So you can see we are using here HTTP method and URL path as a transaction identification. We don't take any users because there are no filters defined for it. And you can see we created a subordinate app, which is the database itself. And we just say, like there is not any specific filter. So we are just going to do this everything in the. Then, of course, there is option to do some notifications. So like, first of all, you need to create an action profile. So the profile is, actually just use one of them, gives you some name and then an action. You can say an email, syslog, script, SNMP or HTTP request. So pretty much similar like in other modules. As a script, you need to provide the path. There is no upload. An HTTP request, you can provide a parameter where to get which method and what to post or send there. These notifications are then used to say, okay, whenever there is some metric, so this is pretty much like alerts in monitoring center. So whenever there is some metric of some threshold, we are going to run an action selected. And you can specify which application it's valid for, and whether it should be stored. So then you can see the stored alerts here in alerts. And advanced can help you with some diagnostics. So unfortunately, because the probe is external here, we won't see any related logs for application processing, because we can see only that the probe is checking the license. But if you look this blue ferret or blue ferret debug logs in the probe, where you have like either local or you can check them in UI, then you can see what is running. You can just make sure this daemon is running, and the rest is actually, unfortunately, had to be troubleshoot on the probe. So whenever you are trying to understand why the application isn't seen, you need to check logs on the probe, because on the collector you can see only the results, because the probe is doing the aggregation, the probe is sending the traffic or the aggregated information over to the collector. And as I mentioned, we have here custom extractors, which allow you to get some specific field into or of the response into the APM to use it for configuration.